Good evening and welcome to Talk of the Neighborhoods. I'm Joe Heisler, your host, coming to you from the BNN Live studios, Eggleston Square, Jamaica Plain, where tonight on the Boston Neighborhood Network, well, we continue our coverage of election 2016. Most of us focused almost exclusively on the presidential race, but there's several local races on the ballot, the primary ballot, coming up Thursday, September 8th, and tonight you'll meet another of the candidates running. He is, of course, well known in the community as a former founder of Touch Radio, also a candidate for mayor, and now running for state rep in the 11th Suffolk District. That includes Roxbury, Dorchester, Jamaica Plain, and Roslindale. Charles L. Clemons, Jr., and he'll be with us at the start of the show. In the second half, we'll shift gears, and we will talk a bit more about the presidential race. Joining me, political columnist Tom Keene. All that and more. All right, we're back with Talk of the Neighborhoods. I'm Joe Heisler, your host. Tonight, we continue our coverage of election 2016. Coming up on September 8th, Thursday, September 8th, is a primary election here in the Commonwealth of Mass, including about a half dozen local races, including some state rep House races and also a couple of county races. And we'll be providing live coverage of those results on Thursday, September 8th. We hope you'll tune in starting at 8:30. Tonight, joining me, one of those candidates. He is running in the 11th Suffolk District that includes parts of Roxbury, Dorchester, Jamaica Plain, and Roslindale. He is the former founder and operator of Touch 106.1 FM local radio station for many years, also a former police officer and corrections official, and I might add a colleague of mine, a BNN host as well, now running for the State House seat in the 11th Suffolk, Charles L. Clemons, Jr. Nice to have you here, Charles.
Peace
as
and
always,
blessings. It's a pleasure, Joe.
Well, I know, and I mentioned at the top of the show, you ran for mayor.
Yes, I did.
Almost 2 years ago, or a little over 2 years ago.
I made
now.
the announcement at my 50th birthday party in 2011.
I remember that. One of many. There was a big crowded field.
Yes.
Didn't make it to the final. And then you ran for city council as well.
Yes.
What made you decide, did you get the bug? What made you decide now to throw your hat in the ring for the 11th Suffolk race? You're running against an incumbent, always tough to do, but it hasn't stopped you, I guess.
Well, as a former Boston police officer who walked the beat in the 11th Suffolk District, Roxbury, beautiful Uptown Grove Hall, Eggleston, Jamaica Plain, and Roslindale, I was able to hear the tragedies, the issues of our community, and being born here in Boston in 1961 at Boston City Hospital, and my mother was born in Boston, so my roots are right here in Boston, and I've always been someone who has given to the community. My father said that you're either part of the solution or you're part of the problem. The incumbent has been there for 18 years. It's time for some change. New ideas, livable wages. A lot of us focus on minimum wage. We should be focused on a livable wage. 2 years ago, the city of Boston, it was stated that a livable wage is $22 an hour. How many of us really make $22 an hour? We're being pushed out of our community with the high rent that's going on. We also have to look at, in our community, the lack of jobs that are going on, and not only just the lack of jobs, but we have those that have been incarcerated who are working for corporations and designer companies, making 12 cents to 52 cents an hour. Then they come out and they're given a little small stipend, whether it be $100, $150, and that's supposed to help them. And of course, they spend that in a couple of days, and then what do? They kick into survival mode.
Jobs, housing,
Yes.
community.
Right.
And
state reps, we write the laws and the policies, and we can change the laws and the policies. And I'm running for state rep so that I can represent the poor, the underserved, and the working class.
Of course, your opponent, Representative Liz Malia, as you mentioned, has been in there for 18 years or nearly 18 years.
Yes.
I think she would like to think that she represents the same. And I'm playing a little devil's advocate here,
Right.
of course, Charles, but explain to our viewers and the voters of the 11th Suffolk District how you're different. What would they get from you that they are not getting from her, or something different?
Well, first of all, we have to understand, I'm knocking on doors every day. It can range from 100 to 200, and one time we hit 300 doors in one day, knocking on doors, and I'm asking the constituents or the residents, do you know who your state representative is? And they say no. 90% say no, Joe. And I said, well, she's been your state rep for 18 years. Her name is Liz. And they say, Liz who? And I say, Elizabeth. And they say, Elizabeth Warren? No, not Elizabeth Warren, Liz. They say, Liz Walker? Like, no, that's the news reporter. Then I show them a picture of her. Now, for a state representative to be in office for 18 years, you would think that the community would know who the state representative is. And so as a state representative, I want to make sure that those resources come to the community, but I also want to make sure that the community understand who their state representative is, and that your state representative is not untouchable, and you should know who they are. That's why I'm advocating to have a district office in our community. Because as you know, Joe, it's not like when we were growing up, Daddy could work 35 hours a week and Mommy could stay home raising the children. Now you have those that are working 2 and 3 jobs, working overtime, and they don't have time to go down to the State House. But if you have a district office, we can hear those issues, those concerns, and then we can fight for it and advocate for them, such as the small businesses that are being outpriced because of the taxes that are going on. Did you know that in the Commonwealth, and you look at the word the Commonwealth, Joe, did you know in the Commonwealth that colleges and universities own so much property, so much real estate, and they don't pay property taxes?
Right, yeah.
And you know how much they're saving per year, Joe? Look at this, $55.5 billion a year. That's what they're saving in property tax.
So
and you and I
So would a
make up the
Representative
difference.
Clemons go after these institutions, or
Well, we would-
what, try and change the laws? I'm trying to understand and flesh this out a little bit again.
Well,
you know?
as I stated, state representatives write the laws and change the policies. So you work with those other state legislators, and it's not rocket science, Joe, to do the right thing. It's not fair that we're being outpriced by taxes, and colleges and universities should pay their fair share. Not only do they save $55.5 billion a year, Joe, they also receive over $85 billion in endowments. I'm just saying, when I went to Boston University, it was $6,000 a year in 1979, which include room and board.
It's probably
And
56
when,
now.
And when you graduated, Joe, you were guaranteed a job earning $24,000 a year or more. Now that's an awesome product. The product that we have in the Commonwealth is broken and is defective. And you know, if you were to purchase a product and it was defective, you would want your money back.
Well, and there's a lot of things that you might see in the community, in your neighborhood, in the state that you want to fix, but of course, when you work in the legislature, it's a collective
Absolutely.
experience. Now, can you work with the powers that be? Can you work with the Bob DeLeo to get things done? Because, as you know, you got to build up some seniority and some cred in there to really kind of get the things that you want. And of course, you need the support of your colleagues to pass those laws. Can you do that?
Absolutely. And as I stated earlier, it's not rocket science, Joe, to do the right thing. I'm just saying, we need to do the right thing for the communities, for Jamaica Plain, for Eggleston Square, for beautiful Uptown Grove Hall, for Forest Hills, for Roslindale. It's not rocket science to do the right thing. And as state representative for the 11th Suffolk District, I will continue to do the right thing as I've been doing since I've been living here in Boston.
Well, of course, you would be joining, some rather esteemed colleagues up there and trying to make your way. Representative Clemons, I'm sure that sounds great to you.
But you could call me Brother Charles, because I will always be your brother.
Yeah, I hear
your
you.
brother
Yeah,
from another mother.
That's it. we're all together here at
Even when I
BNN.
walked the beat in Grove Hall, in Roxbury, in Jamaica Plain, they called me Brother Charles. I will always be your brother. I won't have this gap where I'm untouchable and that the community doesn't know me. And that's why I'm knocking on doors, and that's why I'm at Forest Hills Station in the morning during rush time, in the morning, in the evening, at Stony Brook, at Green Street, shaking hands and introducing and educating the residents that the voting date has changed from the traditional Tuesday to a Thursday.
I was just going to ask you about
Who
that.
does that?
In an election like that? Well, they of course, the official reason they said is because of the Jewish holidays. And
there are other Tuesdays that we could have picked, Joe. Come on, Joe. For real. And on the first day of Boston Public Schools also?
It's a good point, though. It's going to make it difficult. People have a hard enough time remembering to vote on Tuesdays.
Right.
Especially in a year where, you know, everybody's kind of consumed by the presidential race. How does that work against you? And typically, low turnout works for incumbents.
Of course it does. And that's why it's important to have some new blood underneath the Golden Dome, where we educate our constituents and the residents. The constituents should have known that this date had been changed last year. It was changed. Why are we just now hearing about it? You know, state representatives and elected officials, we're that link between the people and government. And it's our duty to inform the community of changes like this. It's our responsibility to make sure that we are representing and working for our community. There's no reason, Joe, that after 18 years, 90% of the residents in the 11th Suffolk District do not know who their state representative is. That's not right.
And on top of that, this is a district that's,
70%.
So-called majority minority, or however you want to.
Well, that's an oxymoron. You're either the majority
I agree.
or you're not. And that's one of the things we definitely...
People of color. Does that work in your favor on the flip side of it?
Of course it is. Over 70% are people of color. Why not? Kennedy said there are those people that look at things the way they are, Joe, and ask the question, why? I dream of things that never were and ask the question, why not? Why not inspire other residents in the community to be a part of this process?
Well, why has she been reelected so many times, though?
Well, she hasn't had...
Again, you know, I'm plain old devil's advocate here.
You can't play devil's advocate. You're my friend. I wouldn't even say that.
I do with everybody that's on here, but...
she's been there for 18 years.
So that must say something about her.
Well, that says something because she's not had an opponent every year. So we don't have a choice. The residents of the 11th Suffolk District deserve a choice. And for so many years, they haven't had a choice. She wins by default. That's not democracy. That's not right. Why that has happened? All I know is that my father said, if you want to be part of the game, Joe, get off the bench and take a shot.
And get in there and do it. Again, Charles L. Clemons Jr. is, he's worked long and hard in the community in several capacities. Now a candidate for state representative in the 11th Suffolk District. That includes Roxbury, Dorchester, parts of Roxbury, Dorchester, Jamaica Plain, and Roslindale. And here tonight as part of our coverage, I should mention to our viewers that in the week or two to come, the representative, Liz Maya, the incumbent, will also be on the show as we're obliged to provide equal time. That being said, back to Charles Clemons. Now, I want to ask you about this because you seem to be focused more on the municipal side of government, having run for mayor and then running for council in District 7 after that. And are the biggest problems facing and obstacles facing the community on the city side or the state side of things?
Well, if you look at the word Commonwealth, there is no Commonwealth in the Commonwealth. And that's why I'm running for state representative for the 11th Suffolk District. We have to understand, Joe, that the poor the underserved, the working class needs a fair deal. And that's not happening with current leadership that we have. As state representative for the 11th Suffolk District, I will make sure that I continue to fight for the poor, the underserved,
Regardless
and the
of
working
the issue.
class. Why
Regardless
not?
of the issue. And
Exactly.
But let me ask you about that, because you did run for mayor, and that was in the election that Marty Walsh ultimately was elected. But there's been, questions, and he promised that his administration would look like the complexion of the people of the city of Boston, which, of course, the majority of whom are people of color.
56%
well,
people of color.
And, of course, he's run into a few bumps in the road along the way. Can you work with him?
Of course.
And do you think...
Mayor Marty Walsh and I are friends.
Do you think that he's doing a good job?
I think he can do better. Yes, he's doing a good job, and he can do better. There's always room for improvement, and that's why it's so important to create relationships with the community, create relationships with elected officials. Again, it's not rocket science to do the right thing, Joe, and I'm just saying that the poor, the underserved, the working class need an equal playing field. We need justice, and justice just means fair dealings.
Well, and perhaps even more germane to all that's been going on, and of course, just over the weekend, another shooting of, well, we're not sure if he was an unarmed black man, but he certainly was a black man in Milwaukee. It's resulted in rioting there. Of course, this is just the latest in a long line of incidents, and add into that the shootings of police officers themselves. As a former police officer, and also as someone who's, I think, rather spoken out rather forcefully for the community of color, does that put you in a difficult position with your former colleagues?
Well,
how are we doing here in Boston on that end?
Well, we can do much better. I've always been for community policing, true community policing, which means
is that
having
something
officers,
different than what we have?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
True community policing is having officers who are from the community, who love the community, who speak the language of the community, getting out of their cruises and walking the beat and having a relationship with the community. That doesn't happen like it should happen right now. And when I was a Boston police officer in the early 1990s, that's what I did. I walked a beat in Mission Hill. I walked a beat in Dudley. I walked a beat in Grove Hall. I walked a beat in Jamaica Plain. I walked a beat in Forest Hills and Rosendale, and even West Roxbury. It's not rocket science to do the right thing. We need to bring back true community policing and having officers who have the trust with the community, and the community trusts the officers.
Well, is this commissioner somebody that's committed to that vision in your mind?
I can say that I'm committed to true community policing. I'm committed to having an equal playing field for all. I can speak for myself. I can't speak for the current commissioner, but I know that true community policing will solve a lot of the problems that we have, including the lack of jobs that are that happen in our community.
Is that though saying that we need more officers of color? Or
of course. We need
what's missing there?
But we need officers who have empathy for our community. Not sympathy, but empathy for our community, and who understands our community, and who understands that in Grove Hall that the median income is $24,000, and that in Eggleston, which is part of Jamaica Plain and Roxbury, the median income is $25,000. But then you go to another part of Jamaica Plain, the median income is $50,000 or $56,000. There's something wrong with that picture. And I'm just saying, Joe, that we need to equal the playing field in order for us to get along like we should as part of the human family.
Well, and talking about that, of course, and maybe it's just luck that we haven't had an incident like that has occurred in other localities, whether it's Baton Rouge or Ferguson or New York, Take your pick. There's any.
Actually, in 2011, we did have a shooting in the South End with Bo Burrell Ramsey was shot by a Boston police officer, and to this day, there has not been any closure to this. And they said that he had a gun, but no gun was found. So there are incidents that do happen in our community, and media hasn't brought light to that. And I'm just saying that we can make our communities safe and decent for our communities if we take in with the road cops, turn in the road cops, but also work with our good police officers too.
How were the police officers when you were on the force? When was that again? I'm sorry.
1990.
Yeah, and were they not sympathetic, empathetic in your opinion? I'm sure you were. You tried to be, but it's a tough job, isn't it? And did you feel that sense of kind of automatic, what do they call that? You bleed blue.
Well, Joe, I love my community, so it wasn't hard for me to do good by my community. I remember Commissioner Bill Bratton walking up to me and calling me the $1 Million Man because he saw how I was dressed.
Now the former police commissioner of New York, but yeah, go ahead.
And he called me the $1 Million Man because the way I was dressed, the way I carried myself, and I felt honored by Commissioner Bill Bratton saying that and stating that to me.
Well, did you ever think that you might have been able, if you had stayed, done more good there than, some people would say being a politician isn't quite as honorable as being a police officer?
Well, during the same time that I was a police officer, Joe, I owned my own limousine service, First Choice Limousine Service, where we specialized in babies' first ride home from the hospital. Hired thousands of Boston residents, some people may call unemployable, but I gave them a chance to have a job and to work in our community. And what better gift to have, or what better job to have?
You have done it all, Charles. Again, Charles L. Clemons Jr. is here tonight. He's running for state rep as a Democrat in the 11th Suffolk District. That is parts of Roxbury, Dorchester, Jamaica Plain, and Roslindale. The primary election is coming up Thursday, September 8th. Don't forget that date. It's an odd day, but just as important. Charles, it's nice to see you as always.
Thank you very much.
Best of luck in your reign.